Yes, welcome back to another F1 2021 My Team Career Mode video, where today we're joined for round number 9 for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Now, you know the drill by now. Before we get into this episode, make sure you go back and watch the previous episodes that you might have missed so that you don't miss out on any drama or happenings or spoil the latest races for yourself. So make sure you go back and watch that. And if you're not subscribed already, be sure to click the subscribe button down below to keep up to date with the latest content. Now, we return to this series off the back of the previous episode where we were racing around our home Grand Prix in a special one-off livery, and I think that was a really nice touch to do so. It was our first race there, and if I could have kept it for the next couple of races, then I would have, as I really enjoyed racing in that car, in that livery, and I think it's actually nicer than the one we've got at the minute, unfortunately. But we're sticking with this one till the end of the season, and that's the way it goes. But we can still make some modifications on it, which we're doing right now in the form of a few more sponsors, as we managed to get another sponsor from our from reaching an acclaim level. I think it's at level 10 that we reached, and we unlocked another sponsor to put on our car, and we chose the Achieve sponsor. So hopefully we can achieve some points in this race, if you see what I did there. Now, to do so, we're going to need some upgrades, as last time out in Britain we just struggled to find the pace in the car. We had a great battle with Alonso out in our home Grand Prix, but unfortunately the car just wasn't up to the task of matching the Alpine's pace, and we just started to fall down the grid after like an immense first lap, to be fair to us. Came from the back of the grid into like P13, 14, but yeah, we ultimately didn't manage to get into the points, and it just slowly fell down the table as Alonso and Esteban Ocon, they just both zoomed ahead of us. And after lap 15, there was just no catching them, especially with the one stop around Silverstone. It's such a long track anyway, and with the pit stop being so long, there's no room to make tactical stops, as you can only make them when it's wet weather, unfortunately. Now, before we move into today's race weekend, we get hit with a grid drop penalty, which is going to move us down the order. I don't know how many grid places we're going to lose out with this, so we're just going to have to give it our best shot in qualifying and hope that's only like a 5 or 10 place grid penalty. So that's 2 race weekends in a row where we've had grid place penalties, unfortunately. So upgrading our reliability very soon might be a good thing to do, as it's just so frustrating trying to do your best in qualifying and then have that just taken away from you in an instant with a grid penalty. Sometimes it is my fault when I forget to replace an engine component, but other times it's like you have an allotted amount of engine components given to you at the start of the season, and we should be using just only the amount given to us, no more, as otherwise we're going to get these grid penalties, and that comes down to our choice of upgrades and facilities. You know, if we had better facilities and upgrades on this car in the reliability department, then I'm sure we wouldn't be having as much engine wear as we do, and in turn we won't be using as many components. But that's enough ranting for now. We've got to get the job done with the car that we've got, and we set our first lap round the Hungarian ring with a time of 1:17. We start for a second lap, and that's what happens when you try and push too hard. It's a mistake that we've all made on the F1 games before, and I'm sure we're going to continue to make it in the future when you get your tyre too much on the curb. And as it's a very slow corner, you just need to keep that bit of momentum and pace in the engine, keep those wheels turning. But if you speed up too much, then you're going to get too much torque whilst you're on the curb and just slip straight off it like we've done there. So it's now come down to this. It's boiled down to one final lap around the Hungarian Grand Prix. We need to just send it in this final lap. It needs to be better than our first if we want to go through into Q2, but we managed to nail that middle sector there, and we're now almost 4 tenths up on our first lap time. Can we get through into that P16 position? We don't, unfortunately, but our teammate Felipe Drugovich, he has his best qualifying, and yeah, he gets into P15. He beats me, he beats Ocon, he beats Tsunoda, and he beats George Russell to that Q2 position. So maybe we're finally seeing some sort of pace to Drugovich's game, but for us, we're starting from the back of the grid, but all is not lost. As you can see, we are starting in the rain, so maybe we will see some spills like in real life, and maybe we'll see a strike at the first corner. Who knows? But all we know is it's now time for the Hungarian Grand Prix.
It's race day in Budapest as we get ready for another round of the Formula One World Championship. We don't expect too many retirements at this track. There are plenty of current and former drivers with flawless finish rates here. In particular, Ralf Schumacher. He made it across the line in all 10 of his Hungarian Grand Prix starts. The Hungaroring, it's like Monaco without the boats. 14 corners, 6 to the left and 8 to the right, and some very tricky corners to deal with. These rainy conditions out there aren't going to help either, so it's very likely we'll see a safety car or two during today's race. Joining me on this very wet day is a man who's no stranger to driving in miserable conditions. Anthony Davidson, you've driven open cockpit, you've driven sports cars. How does the wet weather experience change between the different disciplines?
Well, I wouldn't say there's much difference in all honesty. You know, besides the terrifying closing speeds you find in sports cars with the different categories all sharing the same track, driving in the rain is, well, driving in the rain. Of course, the biggest difference between the two is the closed cockpit versus the open cockpit. You get the luxury of staying dry in the sports car, but if your screen ever gets dirty, well, that's a pit stop, not just wiping your visor or pulling away a tear off. But most of the time, you know, they're both as miserable as each other, to be honest.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Ricciardo, Leclerc, Sergio Perez and Norris, Sainz, Vettel, Stroll and Pierre Gasly, Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, Felipe Drugovich and Verstappen, Mazepin, Tsunoda, Esteban Ocon and Charles, Russell, Mick Schumacher, Fernando Alonso, they've taken a grid penalty, and Nicholas Latifi. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
So we managed to move up a position with Alonso moving to the back of the grid. And I think in the end we didn't actually take a grid penalty, as we've managed to stay ahead of Russell and Schumacher. So that's some good news in the bag. But starting further ahead isn't always the best when it's wet conditions. Sometimes you want to be in the back and nip those positions off the drivers who are a bit incompetent. So we've got to take it as it comes today, as the wet weather can spook the best of drivers. But the 5 red lights, we go for the Hungarian Grand Prix in Season 1, and it is underway. We get a good start against Ocon initially, but a lot of wheel spin holds us down, and Ocon gets away past Tsunoda up the outside. We try to make a darting move down the inside, managed to get about 5 positions there, and crucially ahead of Max Verstappen. But the Red Bull driver certainly isn't an easy man to pass, but I think he must have been spooked by the wet weather, as maybe he didn't want to risk going too deep into turn 1 and risk doing what Bottas did in real life. But here he is again up the inside. He tries to make a move past me, managed to get that done even as we were a bit too cocky in on the throttle going into turn 2, and that left the door wide open for Max Verstappen to make the overtake. But unlike in some of the power circuits, he can't manage to storm away, and we managed to make a move up the inside. He just thought he was going to have an easy time passing some of these slower cars like myself, but no, we give him a run for his money down here in P13, making him work for these positions. But now we've got Raikkonen just up ahead in P12, and we're not far off the points now. We can see Drugovich, he's up into P11. So the Brazilian's having a great race weekend at the minute, and I think it must be his best this season. So hopefully for his sake and for the team's sake, it's a good sign for things to come. But we mustn't forget that we got the Flying Dutchman right behind us on our tail. He tries to make the move down the inside, but we close that door off for him. We shut it on him, and he can't manage to do it on turn 12. But what an opening lap this has been for the team. We've managed to make up some great positions here in Hungary, and maybe, just maybe, this is where Drugovich excels at. Maybe he's great in the rain, we just don't know that yet. But a man who's had a better opening lap than us was Lewis Hamilton. He managed to move to the inside, straight out of the blocks, and he's managed to cover off his title rival and teammate, Valtteri Bottas. So it's a 1-2 for Mercedes once again right now. But Daniel Ricciardo is making a move round the outside, trying to make a move on Valtteri Bottas, but he doesn't. In the end, he settles for P3 with Sergio Perez, Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc rounding off the top 6. Then you've got 4-time championship winner Sebastian Vettel closely following behind, with Carlos Sainz, the other Ferrari man, following him through turn 5. And then you got the likes of Gasly and Stroll, and then Felipe Drugovich. So the man is flying high right now and could be on for his first ever points finish here. So as of right now, we are the second driver in this race, so we've got to do everything we can to help Felipe's race. But right now on board with us, going on to lap 2, and we've got Max Verstappen very, very close behind us on this straight. But that hasn't bothered us one bit as we jump down the inside of Kimi Räikkönen as he gets held up by some traffic ahead of him, and we managed to complete a lovely move on the Alfa Romeo man and just about managed to find enough grip in the racetrack in these wet conditions around Hungary today. So look at this, it's P11 and 12 for Shogs GP right now. I fully came into today's race thinking we were going to struggle around this racetrack, but 4 laps in, we are doing fantastic as a team. We are pushing the expectation of our car to the limits right now, and Drugovich, I mean, he's not had a great season up until this point, but his qualifying session was immaculate and has managed to find a few positions in the opening laps of today's race. But as of right now, he looks to be struggling on these intermediate tyres, and it now feels like the right time to get past him. I mean, he's done well up until this point, but unfortunately he looks like he is struggling out there in the race today. But saying that, so do we, as the back end steps out on numerous occasions in the wet weather today. And now it has allowed Max Verstappen to come through on the main straight. No DRS, fortunately for him, but for us it means that we can use all the ERS in the world to keep our lead intact. And as we now come down into turn 1, we're still leading the way. Somehow we're keeping this battle against the Red Bull driver going, but a snap of oversteer means he can now come through on the inside into turn 2, and that's all it can take. That's all Max Verstappen needs to be able to make an overtake on myself. One mistake can prove costly, and it has done in today's race. And that Red Bull is lightning quick, so keeping with him is a must if we stand any chance of getting into those points today. As unfortunately, when I was tailing Drugovich, he lost so much time to Stroll, who was ahead of him. So that is why that gap formed in the first place. But as you can see, as we go on to lap 8, Verstappen is already 2.5 seconds ahead of me. So we failed pretty miserably at keeping with the Red Bull man. And as these laps keep ticking over, we're now going on to lap 11, and look at the time in the top left, 6 seconds ahead now. But that doesn't mean that we're driving badly by any means. As you can see, Drugovich 17 seconds behind. So we managed to make a big gap to the cars behind us, but also we have managed to cement this position for now. And as you may have just heard from Jeff, he's just said our pit window opens in 2 laps time. And I'm thinking, do we try and get one step ahead of our opponents and launch ourselves back into those points paying positions? I mean, it's worth a shot, isn't it? Plus, we just managed to find out from the weather report that the rain is stopping in 5 minutes time, or around about then. So we've got nothing to lose, but someone who has lost everything is our teammate Felipe Drugovich, and my heart breaks for him as he's struggled so much in the season, and he doesn't look to be reviving that anytime soon with yet another DNF with an engine failure. And that just reinforces the reliability issues that we've been having all season. But as of right now, Max Verstappen is in for his pit stop. He's on to another set of intermediate tyres. I know I don't show it on these clips right now, but we managed to pass him and get up into P10 as we pass Pierre Gasly as well. So that's 2 positions we have just gained from this potential race saving strategy. However, if this is to work, then we're going to need to manage our tyres very well. You can see that front left is on 67%, so we're almost edging into that puncture region territory as we now pass Sainz and Stroll up into P8 now. But just for how long can we hold this position with the way the front tyres are? I mean, Jeff just said over the radio that we've only got a few more laps until the slick tyres, so we've got to be thinking on our feet over these next couple of laps for when to come in, as you don't want to come in too early and risk skidding off the track on the medium tyres, but we don't want to come in too late and risk getting a puncture out on track. So it's a bit of middle ground here we have to fight with, as we see Sainz is now in our mirrors. He's already pit onto a fresh set of inters, so he is lightning at the minute, but crucially he's going to have to pit again.
Check your MFD for a new strategy option.
And just like that, finally we get the message from Jeff, the blessing over the radio to come in, but we decide to stay out. Contrary to belief, we've decided to stay out for one more lap. Maybe this has hindered us, maybe it's worked in our favour as we get a little bit too much on the curve there. And I think the tyre wear is playing a factor right now as Sainz has a little go down the left hand side of us. Can he make the move round the outside? We try and defend to the inside. We still got the line, we still got the racing line, but we need to be defending like crazy against him for this lap only. He's surely going to have to make a pit stop, which he does. He follows me in. We've somehow managed to defend against the Ferrari man. They're one of the top teams in this career mode right now, and somehow we've done it. But going back to what I was saying before, Sainz made the move on myself. I didn't think it was too. I don't think we were ready to come in just yet. The raindrops were still there on the HUD. I mean, the track still looked really wet, but maybe a lap on the medium tyres might have been better than a lap on the really worn inters. I mean, we're risking it as well with like being in the puncture territory on the front tyres. However, it doesn't matter. We're ahead of Sainz, we're ahead of Gasly, we're ahead of Verstappen, we're ahead of Stroll. We're into P8 on this race, and we started from one of the back rows of the grid. So we're flying high right now. We're flying it for Shocker GP, probably where Drogovic should have been if he didn't have that car issue. So now's the time to do him justice. It's squeaky bum time. We've got to get these points in for him and for the team right now. But as you can see on the top left, Gasly and Verstappen have both made up 2 seconds on myself. But look at that, they're on the soft tyres, so surely they're going to have to pit again. I don't think they're going to be able to last at least, like, what is it, 15 laps on the soft tyres? No way. They're going to have to pit on for another set of softs, and I think that might just ruin their race. I think both the Honda Power cars could have made moves on myself and Sainz with the medium tyres alone, but no, they decided to go with the softs, with the bold strategy, and they might just risk it all as we get a snap of oversteer that allows Gasly to come through on the inside, Max to come through round the outside. We go too deep into the corner, make contact with Max Verstappen, but crucially we stay on the track, and I think he does as well, so there's no damage by the looks of things for either car. But that lapse of concentration and traction is all it takes for a car to come past you, especially one that's a better category than yourself. And now Max has having another bite of the cherry, went to the inside, up the hill, and I think he's somehow made that move. But no, we get a great exit out of the chicane, and we manage to make the move down the inside of Max Verstappen to retake 9th on the track. So we are really not Max's favourite person right now. We're having a titanic battle with Verstappen, and that could be his chances blown out the water for the championship. I mean, both Mercedes cars were already steaming away with the title, but I think that might have just confirmed it for Max Verstappen. But there's still time for the Dutchman to come back. He's on the soft tyres, remember, so he does have that tyre advantage over myself and Sainz. And as we now make our way on to lap 25, he is there right behind us. We move to the inside to try and cover him off slightly, using all the DRS we can, whatever we've got left, to keep up with the Red Bull. But we go round the outside of turn 1, going off the track slightly as we lose a bit of traction, and I think that's the Dutchman through. But as I said earlier on in the race, we've got to keep that hope, as everything is not lost yet. As we can see, both Gasly and Verstappen are in the pits, both pitting onto their second set of soft tyres. But if we're not careful, we might just lose it to a Ferrari car as Sainz goes down the inside. We make the move around the outside, keeping the car on the track this time. We're now battling for position. I'm trying to use every last drop of ERS that we have, but Sainz stays ahead as we almost make contact with him actually. And now Stroll is in our mirrors, so we might just be out the points very soon if we're not careful. But as we can see on the top left, Ricciardo is in for his pit, so can we get him on the exit? I think he may have already come out of the exit, as he doesn't look to be in the pits anymore. But right now we need to defend against Stroll. It's not Sainz this time that's behind us, it's Stroll. He moves to the inside, we go to the outside, a copycat move of the one that Sainz did. But now on to this second DRS straight. We've got to get the power down as fast as we can if we want to stay ahead going into turn 2. We go to the inside, trying to keep it cool, trying to keep a steady throttle on the accelerator, and for now we stay ahead. Moving through the laps now, lap 32 now, and Sainz is almost 6 seconds ahead, so no catching him today. But Stroll, we managed to stay ahead by 3 seconds to the Aston Martin man. And look at that, the Canadian's been caught by Max Verstappen, who's on the soft tyres, so he's now 2.5 seconds behind me, and we got 2 laps to last until the finish line. Our tyre wear at a reasonable amount, so we still got some life left in these tyres to go the distance. But as you can see, we haven't even gone a lap yet, and Verstappen has caught us up. He's now only 8 tenths behind us, and we got to go 2 more laps with him right on our tail on the soft compound tyres. I don't know if we can do this, you know, but we're giving it our best shot as we're now into sector 2 of lap 1 of Verstappen's siege against us, and we're keeping him at bay for the minute. We managed to stay ahead by a few tenths up until this point, but right now he is on our tail I don't think he could be closer to us if he tried right now. But look at this, is that the pit lane? We managed to go a whole lap with the Dutchman behind us. Only one more to go. 17% we've saved up for our ERS down this main straight. He's almost going into the pit wall. We make contact, a little bit of contact, but not enough to cause damage. We make the switch back to the inside. He moves to the outside for whatever reason. He doesn't claim that inside line, and we're now back ahead. But as we watch on at our battle, the race has already been won by Valtteri Bottas. So somewhere in the mix of all this drama, he has overtaken Lewis to win the Hungarian Grand Prix and snatch that title win away from the Mercedes guys. Are going blow for blow in each race. I don't think anyone else has won a title yet apart from them guys, but right now we need to concentrate on our race. As Max Verstappen, we've been battling him and for the entire race. As soon as we overtook him down into turn 1, we've just been having scraps all day long, and now we are at the final battle, the climax of this race. Only a few more corners to go until we find out who gets this P9 position and 2 points crucially in the championship. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but 2 points could mean everything by the end of the season. And now as we come up into the penultimate corner, he is still there on our tail, and thankfully we don't make a mistake at turn 13 with only turn 14 to go. We are edging closer to victory against Max Verstappen, one of the hot shots in Formula 1 right now, and we've managed to beat him to P9 in the Hungarian Grand Prix. What a race. I certainly wasn't expecting this much drama from Hungary, but it's lived up to its real life comparison as we take driver of the day from the back of the grid.
And Mercedes have pulled off a great victory here today. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
Well, I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on the track was today: speed. I know it sounds like an obvious thing to say, Crofty, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everybody played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners today.
So it's victory for Valtteri Bottas and second place for Lando Norris, both ahead of the championship leader, I think, at the minute, Lewis Hamilton, in third place, as he also picks up the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, so that's an extra point for the Brit in the championship. Sebastian Vettel takes up fourth place, Sergio Perez in fifth. Everyone else moving down the order from where they started, but me and Max Verstappen pick up the last remaining points of this race. Kimi Räikkönen also DNFs from this race, but I think I would have done the other DNF of Pirelli, Felipe Drugovich, who was on for some points today, but sadly DNF'd from the race. Sainz moves ahead of Tsunoda and Stroll in the championship, with Vettel also moving ahead of Leclerc to P7, but Lewis Hamilton still leads the championship by 1 point. There's 1 point in it, as we almost approach the halfway point now, so I'm very excited to see what will happen come the end of the season. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy today's video, then be sure to hit that like button down below and make sure you subscribe with the notification bell on. And whilst you're at it, why don't you tune in next time for my favourite racetrack in the F1 calendar. It's Spa-Francorchamps, so be sure to be there, as I'm sure that one's going to be a great race to watch.